Greetings. I want to share with you all some bigger picture thoughts today, some of my thoughts, my rambling thoughts about what is going on with the outer planets, how things are unfolding in the collective, what it means for us, and how we can attend to our self-care in the best possible ways, and as well as how we can best participate in being a force for creativity and positivity, which is what the opportunity is right now, right? We have to make a choice. Are we going to be part of the forces of destruction that want us to be in fear, chaos, not knowing which way to go? Or are we going to discover more about who we are, how to be who we are in the world, what it looks like, and what change looks like as we are discovering what we're capable of? So some thoughts on that today. I'm Marina Orms here with your Astro perspective for Sunday, July 14th. I try to do in these weekly videos or once a week to take a little bit of a bigger picture look in terms of the outer planets, which don't change very much, right? So that is why when we look at outer planets, we're really looking at sort of what is the theme of the year, the theme of several years even, the background themes that are going on. But of course, even within those bigger picture themes, we have change and we have developments that happen within them. So it's good to take a peek every once in a while and just kind of check in and see what we're learning, because as astrologers, we can look at the planets, but there's always so much that we learn and gain as we actually go through the process from our human perspective and how we interpret things. We learn a little bit more about what it all means as things actually manifest and show up in the world around us, and give us a little bit more clues of how to understand some of these bigger picture cycles. So we're looking at outer planets. We've got Pluto in Aquarius, bringing in themes of change. We also have Neptune at the very end of Pisces. And if you've been following me, I've been talking about how Neptune in the final degree of Pisces is bringing a sense of completion, also kind of reminding us of where we have unfinished business or where we might need to get our act together in terms of what we need to learn about and attend to in the Pisces energy. So Pisces, again, is about completion, completion of the entire zodiac, but it's also about dissolving. So dissolution, losing touch with or letting go of the old forms, the ways we have oriented ourselves, the ways we have brought things into being, and the ways we have operated. So there's some sense of transcendence, but also some sense of loss as we release or let go of or move on from the ways of the past. So not just the forms and the constructs, but also the metaphors, the mythology, right? The bigger picture of how we see things. So we've got themes of change. We've also got themes of moving on from the old ways of seeing things, the old ways of embodying our our journey, our mission here on Earth. And we also have so that's Pluto and Neptune. They are the furthest out in our solar system in terms of the major planets we consider in astrology, the big 10. And then we've got also Uranus. So Uranus is the planet of shakeup, of change. It's always there, bringing some shakeup somewhere, right? So when we look at where Uranus is placed, we get a clue as to what is changing, what is being shaken up, what is opening us to new doors of possibility, and how should we think about that? Uranus is in Taurus. So what that, I mean, it's kind of a contradictory energy, because Uranus is this planet of shakeup and change. Taurus is a sign of stability and what you can depend on and what feels comfortable. So those two coming together is an interesting energy. Uranus went into Taurus in 2018, and that brings us a work to do in terms of how we bring about change, how we think about change, and specifically how we need to be who we are, be true to ourselves, because Uranus is about freedom and authenticity. So the ways that freedom and authenticity are showing up in the area of Taurus, which is what is normal, what is routine, what is stable, what we can count on and depend on. So in other words, there's sort of multiple layers to think about with that. One is that our normal is changing, and that's pretty apparent. Beginning with the 2020 global pandemic, and many other things we could point to that have been bringing change. The big theme of climate change is bringing in a new way that we need to think about our daily lives and our routines and how we operate and how we conduct business on the planet, right? And the ways that it is impacting our environment, which is kind of our ultimate normal, if you think about it. Is the environment is like the fact that human beings can impact the environment like that, not just the environment, but literally the climate, is an area of shakeup and change, and one that we really need to think about and address. So Uranus in Taurus is bringing us themes of a new normal, themes of shakeup and change to the way that we have done things, the way we feel comfortable, right? Shake up and change to our comfort, making it harder to feel comfortable, which how many of us can relate to that? But also at the same time, we have this profoundly exciting, I think, opportunity. It's very creative to bring in new forms of normal, right? What is a new normal? How do we want to shape that? What does it look like? How can it be more free, right? Bringing in more freedom, more equality, more community, more of all the things that Uranus can represent, and having to do with how we get along together, how we think about things in the big picture. So themes of community, but also innovation, inventions, new possibilities, opening the door to new ideas, outside the box thinking. So it's inviting us to do all of that. So that's those are the three outer planets: Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. And then next inward is Saturn, and Saturn is also in Pisces. Saturn is about how we think about structure and form. So also in that sign of letting go of forms, reimagining new forms, new constructs, new ways of doing things. So you can see this repeat theme is lots of themes of change. And to further underscore that, next year in 2025, we have three outer planets changing signs. So Neptune and Saturn are both changing signs to go into Aries, and Saturn changes signs every 2.5 years, but Neptune spends a much longer period of time in a sign. So Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. So with its shift into Aries in 2025, we have a significant energetic shift. Again, background themes of what is the energy we experience, the quality of this time in history, this period of years that we've been going through, and what is going to look different as Neptune goes into Aries, where it will then remain there for many more years. And then also we have Uranus, right? Another outer planet, changing signs, going into from Taurus to Gemini. So the shakeup and change to our normal, to our routines, to our what we depend on, is that energy is going to reach a point of completion. It doesn't mean we won't still keep changing. It just means this period of very destabilizing feeling, but also profoundly creative at the same time, right? As we lose, as things break down, right, and get shaken up, we also have the introduction of new possibilities, the opening of new doors, and the thinking of new ideas and new thoughts. So with that shift of Uranus going into Gemini next year, we have shakeup and change in our Gemini thinking. So Gemini is about ideas. Taurus is about comfort and routines and dependability. Gemini, sorry, is about communication, information, thinking. And so the ability to have truly innovative thinking, innovative ideas, new inventions. Now, this can contribute to some of the themes we're working through with AI and so on. And all of this brings up questions about, well, how do we make this safe? How do we make it fair? How do we integrate these changes, these new technologies into society? And so that's a bigger picture question as we go through these changes as well. So that's Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn, all changing signs. And of course, Pluto. Pluto has been in the process of changing signs since 2023. So 2023, 24, and in 2025, Pluto will complete its shift into Aquarius. So it's in Aquarius now, but it is going to go retrograde and dip its toes back in Capricorn, entering Capricorn on September 1st, 2024, where it will be, by the way, it will be in Capricorn for the November election in the United States. And then in mid-November, Pluto goes direct and will be heading back into Aquarius in time for, let's see, when does it goes into, oh, sorry, it goes back into Aquarius on November 19th. So it goes direct before that. Direct on, I'm sorry, it goes retrograde, it goes into Capricorn on September 1st, stations direct on October 11th, and then we'll return into Aquarius on November 19th. So, in other words, just in that few weeks when Pluto is dipping its toes back in Capricorn, retrograding back into the sign where we have had a rise of authoritarianism, themes of, institutions that can no longer hold the future, right? The things are changing faster than our systems and structures can adapt. And so we are seeing the breakdown of some systems and structures from, governments and institutions to all kinds of systems that in which we operate, right? The guardrails and the structures that guide and sort of provide that structure for our lives. So, and really how we view all of those things, right? How we think about uh, justice and education and financial things. And so all of the systems with Pluto and Capricorn, we got to look at and go, I don't know if this is really going to hold. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know, how does it have to change? Healthcare, right? The healthcare system is a great example. So, okay, so Pluto will be dipping its toes back in that sign where these themes of really what is our relationship with systems and structures? Also, what is our relationship with authority? How are we depending on or counting on an authority figure to protect us when one of the things we've had to realize through this process is the government's not going to save you, the structures are not going to save you. So it's really like discovering where the people have the power and what that looks like and how we respond when we think about it that way. And so this has been a process of us recognizing that, realizing it, and realizing is a great word because it means making real. So how we are implementing the idea of shift and change in how we orient ourselves and how we sort of reclaim that authority for ourselves, for the individual, right? For the people, all the diversity and the beauty in the world, right? Not just a certain kind of person. So all the isms, sexism, misogyny, patriarchy, racism, homophobia, all of the things that might provide a sort of an old way of being that gives comfort or structure, or I know I can depend on this, I know I can count on this, but is those isms are not the wave of the future. So so they have to hold on tighter to keep their grip on things, right? And that's what we see emerging in terms of the threat of authoritarianism. And okay, so as Pluto goes back into Capricorn for a few weeks, including that time period in November, the election day, we as I mean, this is how I think about it, right? Because I'm an American and I am watching everything that's going on and connecting it to astrology. So how I see it is that when Pluto returns to Capricorn, it's going to remind us of where there is unfinished work, where we really need to clean up our act and decide. And by clean up our act, I mean reclaim our power. So decide who we are, decide how we need to respond, decide what that means for each of us as individuals. How does each of us participate in creating a world that can hold the future? So creating systems and structures, or overhauling systems and structures, or upgrading systems and structures so that they can serve us, the people, going forward. So so now so that's Pluto. Pluto's gonna, and I want to say too that here's my thinking right now about how politics and the election is all going to go. And take it with a grain of salt because astrologers really cannot predict the future. But here's what I see is I think this is going to continue to be a long, slow process. But what you see happening in the process is, there's the fears that come up and the worst case scenario and seeing that future and how it makes us feel and all of that. But there's also, at the same time, there's a lot of reorienting and reorganizing around the ways that we collectively are saying this, the old ways of being aren't going to work for us anymore. We have to change how we think about things, how we talk about things, how we believe what we believe in, right? And how we encourage ourselves and each other to participate and to think of ourselves as the authority. And that really, to me, is the bigger story of how the planets are the story of how the planets are unfolding, that is represented by how we are walking through our journey and emerging into what it is we're here to discover at this point in time and what will ultimately be history. So as Pluto, so this is okay. So as Pluto goes into Capricorn, I think we're going to have more of this to confront, more of it to face, and I think that ultimately the majority of the and the spirit and the will of the American people that is really has been kind of like, where is it? Okay. Where's that part where we get excited about democracy? Like, I remember that even more 30 years ago than we see right now. Right now we're like, oh, I don't know if democracy is going to work. But we have to get excited about and reinvigorated by the principles that created our nation. And that's part of the United States Pluto return, right? It's an overhaul. We're in a period in history where it's like, okay, now we have to take it to the next level. We know that our founding fathers were fathers. There was patriarchy involved in the formation of this country. There was not just racism, but literal slavery that founded the economic foundation of our country, and so on, right? We could go on. So what we need to look at now is how we are going to do things differently, and it's this pressure. And that's what I know about planetary cycles, is that they bring pressure that helps us grow and evolve and get better over time. So we have gotten better. I mean, since women got the right to vote and the civil rights movement, there have been lessons learned, things that have changed for the better. Certainly not enough, and certainly not all the things that need to change. But the point is that things do change over time, and we need to remember that. We need to remember that what is happening is a change process, and it's painful to have to confront, oh, that means I have to change too, right? And not necessarily painful, but uncomfortable, right? And can bring up or bring us into that place of, fear and worry and anger and all the things that we are scared of, that we see happening around us. And certainly those forces, I'm calling them the forces of destruction that want to derail our evolution, right? So how we respond to that is based in the lessons that we as individuals have been learning as we do our own self-care, self-healing, attending to our own personal growth, healing trauma, healing our own trauma, healing generational trauma, participating in having a vision and a dream for the future. So there's slow change is what I'm saying. And what's happening is that under the surface, beneath the things that are scary, is that change is happening partly because this great pressure is being put on us. And so how we respond is what we are creating for the future. So it's a very creative time. We can't see it yet because we're still in the middle of it. But everything we do, everything you do in your life that is working toward a positive future is investing in that belief in the future. And it's a way to tip the scales to the positive version of the future that we want to create. And so rather than succumbing to the forces of destruction, we can contribute to the positive thing that we are creating and use that energy to inspire us, to get us fired up, to reimagine and think differently and shift how we do things so that it's even better. So I don't expect the election to actually be a decisive answer one way or the other. I do not expect it to be the end of the world. And I also do not expect it to be the end of the work. So there will be continued work as we go forward into next year, regardless of what happens. There's going to be a struggle between the forces of destruction and the forces of creativity. And so this is a long haul, and that's why you have to take care of yourself to be part of creating this future. Because if you let yourself go downhill, then you can't participate in the creating part, and then you're not able to tip those scales toward the positive vision of the future. And so that's what I see about the election. I do have other videos about the planets heading into the election, the actual time of the election. There's election video that I put out, and it speaks more to the eclipse that happens and the Scorpio new moon prior to the actual election, and some of the dynamics that are at play around the exact date of the election. So I recommend that as well. But right now, where my thinking is that as we are heading toward the election, it's not going to be like a clear, it's going to be a long process, is what I'm saying. There will be victories and there will also be setbacks. And so it's a long haul, it's a long game, and strategy matters, long-term thinking matters. And but for you and your individual life, I just want to keep encouraging you to do the things that you do to make your life and the world a better place, because that's how we do this. That's how we create a positive future that is living up to the ideals of the country of the United States of America. As well as any other dreams and visions and hopes you have for the future and for your future generations and all of that. Okay, so that's the election. Is keep going, have the long view, keep investing in the future. Here's a little, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Neptune. But first, I want to tell you this little anecdote, this little visual story. So I've shared this. If you've been following me for a long time, you've heard this before probably, but many of you are newer. So my daughter is a black belt in Taekwondo, and I remember she would go to competitions and do board breaking, which is kind of how they demonstrate their skills, right? Power breaking. So by punching and kicking, you break these wooden pine boards, and it's powerful, it's exciting, it's impressive, right? And so I got to go through the process of watching her learn how to do this. And the thing that stuck with me the most is that when they are learning how to break the boards with their kicks and their punches, they have to learn how to aim. And they can't aim at the board, right? You think you're aiming at the thing that you're fighting against, but they're actually aiming at the point beyond the board. So metaphorically, when you are when your goal is beyond the thing that you are fighting against, boom, that, the board is broken. There's no more thought. It just happened. So the positive things, the hopes, the dreams, the visions for the future, when we imagine after we win, after those things happen, and we plan for that, and we start to put the groundwork and the foundations in place for that future to come to being, we are aiming beyond the obstacle. And so when we focus our attention on the thing that we're fighting against, that's where we get stuck, right? And as it would happen, the board doesn't break. When you're aiming at the board, it doesn't break. So you have to aim beyond the board, and we have to aim beyond the thing that is distracting us through fear and all of that stuff. So hopefully that's helpful and it makes sense to you. So the final thing that I want to say is about Neptune. Neptune is about many things. It brings so as much as some of these themes, Saturn and Capricorn, have to do with form and structure and systems and institutions, Neptune has to do with dissolving. So releasing of forms, the ending of forms. And maybe Aquarius has to do with smashing and earthquakes and destruction and breakdown that way. But Pisces has to do with simply transcending, right? Being that the bird that flies above all of it, right? So the other thing that Neptune dissolves our sort of way of orienting ourselves. It brings confusion, and it can also get us distracted by things that feel good but don't have any substance to them. It can bring in themes of illusion, delusion, confusion, and disorientation, basically. So when we are letting go of what has been, how we orient in the past, what we believe is part of that. What are the stories we tell about who we are and how we function and what's good and bad and right and wrong and all that. When we're when we're letting go of or moving beyond the old ways of understanding, the old ways of orienting ourselves, and the old ways of telling a story, we are also being asked to open our hearts to new possibilities and like a new story. So how we experience the story of who we are, and themes of mythology fit into Neptune and Pisces energy, the bigger myth of how we see ourselves, how we identify, who we see ourselves as, how we decide what is right and wrong, good and bad. And Pisces and Neptune together especially have to do with imagination. So dreaming, right? Transcending the limitations is part of what we do when we dream and we imagine. It's like we are bringing in possibilities that exist outside of the limitations. And so our capacity to dream and imagine a future and to allow ourselves to reorient around new systems, new ways of knowing who we are, new principles to believe in, a new mythology, a new myth about who we are. And so I've been waiting since 2011 for there really to be, since Neptune went into Pisces, really to be a new guiding principle, right? Not just fear, not just destruction of the old, but actually something that excites us, something that inspires us, something that is our new reason for going forward. And I'm starting to see it. And so as Neptune is just at the very end of Pisces, it's like, come on, guys, you gotta tap into this bigger possibility of who you can be, and you have to believe in it. And so we're starting to see now like a reinvigoration of themes of democracy, themes of what are the bigger ideals and principles of the United States of America. If our religions of the past are not going to serve our needs going forward, what are going to be our new way, our new philosophy, right? Our new guiding principles, our new ways of orienting ourselves, ways of seeing who we are and believing in ourselves, and how, what gets us excited, what gets us inspired. And so I am hopeful, and hopefully you're hopeful too, that we're starting to see, and it's coming not from, interestingly enough, not from one authority, one patriarchal figure, but from many people and many places, people who have voices, because the systems of the old ways that we used to get news, right? That used to be controlled by this few places who had a grip on how information was shared and what information was shared. And now we have social media, now we have blogging, we have videos like this one where anybody can put out their view, their voice, their perspective. And so whatever it is that gets you inspired and excited, let yourself start orienting around that, and it is already starting to congeal. And I felt that right as Neptune stationed retrograde. It got to 29 degrees 55 minutes and stationed retrograde, and that was recent. I don't remember the exact day off the top of my head, but it was like, I think it was around the time of the debate, the presidential debate, that was such the issue du jour. But so we're tapping into, it's almost like we can almost feel that Neptune going into Aries, and that rebirth feeling, that new way forward, that thing that we can become and get excited about what we're becoming. And now Neptune is retrograde. So that's the way it works, right? This is a long process, and it's long for a reason, because it is asking us to change at such profound levels. So deeply, so thoroughly, right? Like the change is deep. And so as Neptune is now retrograde, and we're starting to see these voices and these new stories that are stories of hope, stories of inspiration, stories of possibility, coming from wherever they come from, maybe from the Democratic Party, maybe from Joe Biden, maybe from the person you like on YouTube. But the point is that as you tap into these bigger picture and stories of hope, now with Neptune retrograde, it's about integrating, it's about processing that information and working on the inner part of how you integrate that for yourself. What does it mean for you? What do you believe? What do you think? So how you process and integrate and digest that feeling of what is a new story that can give me hope, not just hope for the future, but a vision to get excited about. And to know that we're not going to all agree on the best way to get there. We may not even agree on the details of the vision, but we can agree on what direction it's in. So and it has to do with forces of creativity versus forces that want to that have a very dystopian view of the world, forces of destruction. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and for continuing, to do your own work and your own self-care. Some people were posting or commenting. Yesterday, I posted a challenge to take a courageous act that would support peace and the creation of peace. And I was hearing things like, I'm going to get still and quiet. I'm going to honor myself the way I am. It's like these simple ideas that help us connect, not get sucked into the fear, the anxiety, the adrenaline, the overwhelm, but instead to remember that we've got this, we are doing this. And so just checking in with yourself. What do I need? How do I need to take care of myself so that I can be my best self, so that I can participate in the creative process and be part of this exciting future that I can really get behind. So self-care, that's why we're talking here about self-care, so that we can be creative together. Thank you so much. I am Marina Orms. You can learn more about me at astrologyheals.com, how to work with me, how to get support for your process through looking at your chart. Check it out, astrologyheals.com. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you like what you hear. Share it with a friend. I appreciate your support, and let's do this. All right. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.